If God is all powerful and all loving, why doesn't he heal everyone who prays for it? The answer might not be what you expect. A friend is diagnosed with cancer. They pray. Their family prays. Their church prays. And yet the cancer spreads. They choose to undergo chemo, radiation, whatever it takes. But instead of full support, they hear whispers from the community. If you just had more faith. God will heal you if you truly believe. Those doctors, they only care about money. The medical system is corrupt. As a nurse, I've seen this over and over. People are already fighting for their lives. Now they have to battle judgment from those who think trusting God means rejecting medical help. It's infuriating. If prayer alone was supposed to heal every sickness, why did God give us doctors in the first place? Why did Jesus himself send out his disciples, not just to preach the gospel, but to heal? We need to rethink what we believe about miracles. Jesus walked on water once. He fed 5,000 people with a few loaves and fishes a couple of times, but those weren't his everyday practices. Jesus had feet. He walked. He traveled by boat. He ate food that was harvested and prepared the normal way. His miracles weren't about erasing the normal order of things. They were about revealing something deeper. Yet when we talk about healing, we act like miracles should be the standard instead of the exception. They never were. And here's the uncomfortable truth about biblical healing. Not everyone in the Bible who needed healing got it. Jesus didn't go and set up healing clinics where everyone lined up and left disease free. At the pool of Bethesda, we see in John 5, sick and paralyzed people were gathered there, desperate for a miracle. Jesus walked into a mess of suffering, stepped over countless hurting people, and healed one man. Just one. And that guy, he wasn't even particularly deserving. We read later on in John 5, 15 through 16, that he sold Jesus out to the authorities. So why him? Why not others? We don't know. And that's the point. And then there's Paul, arguably the greatest missionary in history, who had a thorn in his flesh. We don't know exactly what this is. Maybe it was a physical illness, maybe it was something spiritual, maybe it was some sort of relentless opposition. Whatever it was, Paul begged God to take it away, and God said no. My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness, was God's response. If God refused to heal Paul, one of his most devout followers, then what makes us think that healing is always guaranteed for us? And then there's Lazarus. We love the story of Lazarus because, spoiler alert, he comes back to life. But we forget the part where Jesus intentionally let him die. Yeah, I said that right. When Jesus got word that Lazarus was sick, he didn't rush to his side. He stayed where he was at for 2 more days. 2 whole days. And because of that, Mary and Martha suffered. Their brother suffered. Their whole community mourned. Jesus could have prevented that. He could have healed him with a word, but he didn't. Instead, he let the suffering unfold on purpose. And that's hard to swallow, because if Jesus allowed pain and grief to take its full course before stepping in, what does that say about the suffering he allows today? Now, here's where we get to the why. In his Heart of the Torah commentary, Rabbi Shia Held puts it this way. He says, God is a power sharing rather than power hoarding God. Think about that. God is all powerful. He could fix everything in an instant, but he doesn't. Why? Because he chooses to share power instead of hoarding it. He gives us the ability to work, to heal, to build, to grow. He doesn't override human agency. He partners with it. Miracles aren't God's usual way of operating. We are. This is why the story of Lazarus matters so much. Jesus didn't just demonstrate his power over death. He demonstrated his willingness to work through human experiences, even painful ones, to accomplish his purposes. Some people act like choosing medical treatment means rejecting faith, that trusting in doctors somehow means you're not trusting God. That is utter garbage. By the way, a lot of the times those people casting those stones aren't facing the same medical situations that those that they're casting the stones at are facing. Modern medicine does not conflict with faith. It's an extension of God's work in the world. God designed our bodies to heal. And if you understand, modern medicine is designed to help that process. It doesn't replace God's design. It is intended to support God's design. If you believe God provides through farmers, teachers, and builders, why wouldn't he also provide through doctors, nurses, and researchers? Demonizing modern medicine is like refusing to eat because God should just provide all my food supernaturally. It misses the entire point of how God typically works in the world through human agency and natural processes that he created. Of course, no one likes to suffer, but suffering changes us. Think about every classic hero's journey that we read about in literature. The hero doesn't become who they are meant to be without going through hardship. The struggle is what forms them. What if suffering isn't meaningless? What if the real question isn't, why doesn't God take this away, but what is God doing in me through this? Ask yourself this: what strengths is this challenge forcing me to develop? Who can I learn from in this season? How can my struggles serve a greater purpose? Look, we don't get to choose whether suffering happens, but we do get to choose how we respond to it. One of the things that I've found in my years of study is that we tend to get bad theology from asking the wrong questions. The real question is what we should ultimately be pursuing. And at the end of the day, the biggest question isn't, why doesn't God heal everyone? It's, how can I be part of his work in the world? Maybe the reason that some prayers seem unanswered isn't because God is absent. Maybe it's because he's waiting for us to step in, to be his hands, to fight for justice, to care for the sick, to walk alongside the suffering, to be the miracle for someone else. Now, at this point, if you're thinking, Ryan, you just don't have enough faith, you just haven't seen the real miracles, I'm here to tell you that yes, miracles happen. I have witnessed them myself, ironically, as a skeptic. God still moves in powerful, supernatural ways that defy medical explanation. But here's the paradox. We are called to both pray boldly for that healing and to accept what comes. These aren't contradictory, they're complementary. Think about Jesus in Gethsemane. He prayed with such intensity that he sweated blood. Father, if you were willing, take this cup from me. But in that same breath, he said, yet not my will, but yours be done. He pleaded for rescue while accepting that suffering and even death might come. This is our model. So how do we, as faith communities, walk with people through suffering? No one wants to suffer. No one wants to die. These are natural human reactions to the brokenness of our world. Our role isn't to explain away the pain or offer empty platitudes. It's to stand beside those who suffer, grieve with those who grieve, pray without ceasing, show up again and again and again. Never abandon, never judge. We're called to lift up our suffering brothers and sisters to God as a living sacrifice, begging for mercy, but at the same time, trusting in His sovereignty. Whatever the outcome, we commit to walking this road together, because sometimes the miracle isn't the healing. Sometimes the miracle is the community that refuses to let someone suffer alone. So here's the final thought. Miracles are real, but they're not the norm. God's way is usually through us, not instead of us. So next time someone asks, why doesn't God heal everyone? Maybe the real question is, what is God asking me to do? If you found this video edifying, I want you to do something for me. I want you to go to the share button, and I want you to share this with one other person, just one person who you believe could benefit from this message. Let's take on all of this bad theology that has spread, that has taken the suffering people and pushed even more suffering upon those who are already in that vulnerable state, making them believe that God doesn't love them because they're suffering, and removing them from their community because their community doesn't agree with their medical decisions. And if it's someone who doesn't like videos, the great news is if you go into the description, you can find a link to the article and you can share the article or a podcast with them. Let's get the message out there. Let's share this and let's blow open the doors on bad theology together.